G'day, Palaeo Paul here with some more treasures from my personal fossil collection. And this week I want to talk about the importance of having favourite fossil collecting sites. When I was a kid, one of my favourite sites was in the Hunter Valley just north of where I lived in the north of Sydney. A place called Mulbring, and there's a quarry there which every stone has a fossil in it. Most of those fossils are these lace-like structures. These are actually a bryozoa, which is a colonial creature that lives in fan-like structures, and that's what you can see here. There's actually two types of bryozoa at Mulbring. One with the much finer grained pattern is called Fenestella, whereas this one with the more coarse patterning is known as Polypora. And basically around each of those dots would be where the creatures lived. And so water could flow through this structure and they would filter feed out microorganisms in order to be able to eat. Occasionally at Mulbring you could come across various Brachiopods. We have one here which you can see, this is actually the external form of that Brachiopod, the external shell. Whereas here, this is what you find more often. This is a Brachiopod called Ingerlarella. And what this is actually the shell's completely disappeared. And this is sediment that has filled the inside of the shell. It's called an internal mold. And so we can actually see details such as where the muscles that open and close the shell attach to the shell, this crinkly area here. Something else I just want to show you. You might have noticed that there's a number on this specimen. That's because when I was a kid collecting fossils, I made a catalogue of all of the various fossils in my collection. This is that catalogue. Each one had a number, and so this one is 132B, B for Brachiopod, and if I go to 132B down here, you can see I've listed all of the site information and any other details, references to papers about that particular species of fossil. So that's a good habit to get into early on in your fossil collecting saga. Something else at Mulbring, this is a solitary Regos coral. And again, what you're seeing is not the coral itself. The coral has completely disappeared. What you've got is the filling of the inside of that solitary Regos coral. So whereas today we think of corals as colonial creatures made up of lots and lots of individual creatures called polyps, this is a solitary, a single polyp that grew by itself on this ancient sea floor. The fossils at Mulbring are Permian in age, so we're talking about 250 odd million years old. They come from the end of the Permian period, not long before the biggest mass extinction of all time. And it's interesting in that at Mulbring we can tell that this was an area very close to glaciers, because occasionally at Mulbring you find what are called drop stones. These are rocks that glaciers pick up on land as they're moving across the land, and then when they break up to become icebergs, they carry those rocks out across the sea, and as they melt, those stones drop out of the glacier or out of the iceberg and end up on the sea floor. So we know that this was a pretty cold environment. Pretty amazing the sorts of stories that you can tell from a couple of old fossils. For more fascinating fossil videos, tune in to the Paleo Pictures YouTube channel.